Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good morning and hello everyone. Please know that whoever you love, wherever you are on your personal journey of faith or search for meaning, you are truly welcome. If you are visiting or connecting for the first time, we are grateful to have you with us. We come together in beloved community to grow in wisdom, to welcome and deepen relationships, and to act for a just and sustainable world. I am Conrad Ayasi, and I have the privilege of serving on your board of trustees. Given the present circumstances, there is no special table where guests can have a discussion with an informative board member to answer your questions. However, you are cordially invited to join the coffee time discussions after the service by clicking on the link that will appear on your screen after you leave the service. We would love to meet you there. We acknowledge that this meeting takes place on the traditional territories of the people of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina and Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations of the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta 3. We acknowledge that we are all treaty people, and we are grateful to be living on this traditional Blackfoot land. And now over to Lynn for the chalice lighting.
In the stillness, we hear every blade of grass. In every speck of dust, in ourselves, in the visible and invisible worlds, in planets, the sun and stars in joyous dance of atoms, the laughter of the heavens rippling through the universe. In this spirit, we light our chalice. Welcome. I am so glad you've joined us for this service this morning. Our minister, Reverend Deborah, is away this morning. I am Lynn Nugent, a member of the Calgary Unitarians and your service leader today. Many of you will be aware that Reverend Deborah Reverend Samaya, who's minister for the South Fraser Unitarians, and I are offering a world religions program this year. This month, we've been studying Wicca and participating in some spiritual exercises designed to give a sense of the Wiccan experience. Wicca is a contemporary pagan religion going back to earlier Celtic and nature-based religions. Each month, we feature a speaker or speakers from the religion of our month. And today we've been very fortunate to have some of the members of the Unitarian Earth Spirit Council from the Vancouver Unitarian Church who've agreed to share with us and with the South Fraser Unitarians. Now, why, when our focus has been on contemporary Wicca, are Unitarian Universalists speaking to us today? There are many UUs who are inspired by pagan earth-based traditions. One of the sources we draw on, and I quote from our sources, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with nature. Huguette Samsonet Hayden and Laurie Anderson of Unitarian Earth Spiritual Council will be providing us with the experiences of the calling and the releasing of the four directions. The reflection recorded by Louise Bunn will provide us with a scholarly and thoughtful background on the general history and the beliefs of contemporary pagans. And she will share with us the inspiration that many Unitarian Universalists find in pagan practices. And now to Jane Perry, our music director, for our opening song.
Good morning, friends. It's good to be together with you again in this virtual space. As Lynn has just mentioned, we're honoring the pagan tradition today, and in the pagan tradition, one of the traditions is the calling of the directions, north, south, east, and west. In honor of that tradition, we're going to sing our first hymn this morning, Sing and Rejoice, 4 times. The first 2 times is just a chance for us to get our voices warm up, and then I'm going to pause and instruct us in how we're going to sing this in a round, yes, a round, even though we're all on Zoom together today. There's so much to be grateful for. Let's sing and rejoice.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice.
So you'll see the phrase sing and rejoice. I'm going to sing that, and if you want to sing this as a round, echo me as I go on to the second sing and rejoice little phrase. And if you want to just sing with me, that's okay too. Here we go, twice.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice.
Good morning, everyone. It is lovely to see all of you. And you might be wondering, what has Sheila been up to this week? Well, I have been at LREDA, which is the Liberal Religious Educators Conference, all week. And we've been doing deep dives to equip us to answer the call to embrace bold new ways of being that center on collective liberation, anti-racism, and inclusion like never before. And I have to say, I've really been enjoying it and have a lot to bring all of you when I'm done my conference this week. And you might be wondering, what are the children doing today? And I love the topic we've been doing. I've also been attending World Religions with Reverend Samaya and Reverend Deborah. And as we look into Wicca and paganism. And so with the children today, we're looking at Halloween traditions and Samhain traditions, as well as having some fun connection games. So you don't want to miss that. The children are gathering at 1 p.m. on Zoom, and the youth are gathering at 2 p.m. on Zoom. And all of the links are in the weekly children and youth newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter and you'd like to, just send me an email at sheila@calgaryunitarians.ca and we'll get you hooked up. And also, I have a wonderful Halloween hunt for the children. So whether you're going out to trick or treat or you're staying home this year, the Halloween hunt cards can be printed off, and it gives your children or youth clues to search the house for candy. So look for that in the next CYR newsletter that'll be coming out midweek as a special Halloween edition for you. And multi-faith calendars have been selling like hotcakes, and we only have 5 left. So if you would love a multi-faith calendar, again, send me an email at sheila@calgaryunitarians.ca and you can get yours. They make really great gifts. We've sold just about over 50 calendars so far, and all the proceeds go to help the youth attend conferences. So that's very exciting. And lastly, for Halloween for everybody, we have this coming Friday, 7 p.m. sharp, the classic Halloween movie, Hocus Pocus. It has Bette Midler. If you haven't seen it, you'll want to see it. And the links will be in the weekly e-news, and I hope to see all of you there. And now I would like to invite Huguette Sansonet Hayden and Laurie Anderson from the Unitarian Earth Spirit Council to read the story, Where the Wild Things Are.
Okay. Where the wild things are. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another. His mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, I'll eat you up. And he was sent to bed without anything to eat. That very night in Max's room, a forest grew and grew and grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world around. Oh my goodness. And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day. And in and out of weeks, and almost a year, to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars, and gnashed their terrible teeth, and rolled their terrible eyes, and showed their terrible claws. Till Max said, Be still, and tamed them with this magical trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once. And they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all. And made him king of all wild things. And now, cried Max, let the wild rompers start. And they sure romped, and they did, and they did. And boy, did they have fun, it looks like. Now stop, Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then all around from far away, across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are, and but the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go. We'll eat you. We love you so." And Max said, "No." The wild things roared their terrible roars and yapped their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stopped and sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day and into the night of his own very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. Isn't that a good story?
Pagan ceremonies are held in circles wherever possible, honoring the sacred circle of life. The beginning of a pagan ceremony creates sacred space within the circle by calling upon the four directions. This morning, we're unable to be physically present with each other to create our circle. However, if you wish to get a sense of honoring the four directions, stand or remain sitting and face each direction as it is called, thus creating your own circle. Today, because the wheel of the year has moved very close to Samhain, happening next weekend, the directions are being called as one would call them for Samhain. Samhain marks a time when the veil between the living and the dead is believed to be at its thinnest. I will now invite Huguette Sansonet Hayden and Laurie Anderson of the Unitarian Earth Spirit Council to call the directions.
Elemental powers of air, guardians of the east, I call upon you and request your presence, that you may witness our service and bless us all.
Element powers of fire, guardians of the south, I call upon you and request your presence, that we may witness our service and bless us all.
Elemental powers of water, guardians of the west, I call upon you and request your presence, that you may witness our service and bless us all.
Element powers of earth, guardian of the north, I call upon you and request your presence, that you may witness our service and bless us all.
All of you, east, south, west, and north, as we gather here to celebrate the memory of our ancestors, beloved children of springtime, summer, autumn, and winter. Look to the east, feel the rising wind, and smell the coming rain.
Look to the south, the sun is low and short in its course.
Look to the west, the sea is running high, fishes are roving, as waves cover the shore.
Look to the north, the great mountains loom over us. Look around the room you're in. Each and everything in this room is based in our culture, built by our dead ancestors.
Culture rests on the shoulders of dead giants. We live our lives in contact with the dead. Whether we acknowledge it or not, our whole way of being lives with them.
In this season where the veil is thin, the time is ripe to speak with our beloved dead and hear from them.
We stand at the gates between summer and winter,
the gates of youth and age,
the gates of then and now.
the gates of memory and desire.
This is not a time of weeping and grief, but a time for rejoicing with those we love, with our friends, our parents, our sisters, our brothers, aunties, uncles, and elders, with our beloved dead.
Let us welcome and make merry with our loved ones, with those who have gone before us.
Let us make this sanctuary a warm and friendly place, a circle of light and love in the midst of the winds of October.
So let's sing together our next hymn, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. This is not a piece that is well known in our congregation, and so in its 5 verses, if you want to just listen for the first verse or 2 and then join in when you feel comfortable, that'd be great. This is a hymn that celebrates the calling of the 4 directions. It's also a piece that is eminently danceable. So if you find your toes tapping or a wish to drum on something, please know that is encouraged in this hymn. Here it is, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden.
Underfoot, all our days you ground our being, sage and thistle, grass and root, herbs to heal us, plants to feed us, land to till and tend and plow. With the pendant deep as midnight north, we ask you be here now. Father, ere your inspiration holds together all that lives, whilst we breathe our minds see clearly, leading us to love and give. Raging whirlwind, whispered breezes, violent gale and gentle cloud, with the blade as sharp as morning earth, we ask you be here now. Brother fire, great transformer, share the passion of the sun. In our hearts you warmth revives us, cooks our food and heats our homes. Flaming candle blood within us, blazing desert will to grow. With the wand directing power south, we ask you be here now. Sister water ever flowing, ocean, river, pond and rain, drink we now and quench our thirsting, cleanse us we begin again. Mist and ice, a host of changes, all the courage will allow. With the cup, the holy chalice west, we ask you be here now. Love our spirit, intuition in the center of our souls. In your love we find relation, all connected we are whole. Timeless mystery, quiet conscience, deepest values voice inside. With the drum and with the cauldron, this we ask you be our God.
Excuse me. Let us now enter a time of quiet reflection through listening, silence, and music. May we quiet our minds, relax our bodies, and be fully present. The words I have chosen to bring us into our centering time are written by Starhawk, a Wiccan and a social activist well known to many Unitarian Universalists. Earth Mother, Star Mother, you who are called by 1,000 names, may all remember we are cells in your body, and we dance together. You are the grain and the loaf that sustains us each day. And as you are patient with our struggles, so we shall be patient with ourselves and with each other. We are radiant light and sacred dark, the balance, and the freedom beyond fear. Within you, we are born, we grow and live and die. You bring us around the circle to rebirth. Within you, within us, you dance forever. Let us take time to tend the bonds of care and compassion in our community. We who are gathered in this virtual space each bring our own challenges, concerns, joys, and milestones. As we gather this morning, we acknowledge our many concerns, the losses, anxieties ever present in these times. Social isolation is a great challenge for many of us. Some of us are able to be physically present with others to greater or lesser degrees. Whatever our circumstances, always present is worry, not for ourselves, if not for ourselves, then for our loved ones and for those outside of our circle, both locally and farther away. Let us each take time to name out loud or to hold in our hearts all those who are struggling, including ourselves, naming our own fears and struggles. Let us light our candle of concern. In the midst of the challenges of our time, there is also joy. We mark birthdays, anniversaries, and other celebrations, reminding ourselves that there are reasons to show gratitude. Yes, it's cold outside, but there's beauty in the snow-covered boughs of the trees. Take time to name out loud or in the silence of your heart what you give thanks for and what joys are present for you today. Let us light our candle of joy. Our global candle holds both joy and concerns. Last week, Ujamagrammas, members of the Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign of the Stephen Lewis Foundation, raised $24,000 in support of the African grandmothers and the orphan children in their care. We light the global candle today for them and for others in the world who have had their struggle made even more difficult by the pandemic. Let us light our global candle. Our reflection this morning on paganism comes from a Unitarian Universalist perspective. Our speaker, Louise Bunn, has a particular interest in nature religions. She wrote the Unitarian Universalist Religious Education Curriculum, Pagan 101, which is used across our denomination. She has a master's degree in myth and cosmology and the sacred from the University of Canterbury in the UK. She's been an active member of the Unitarian Church of Vancouver since 1996. She works as a sculptor and painter with a busy studio on Granville Island. Her artwork is inspired by the processes of change and transformation, and she explores how we as human beings embed ourselves in the world by finding meaning during our time here. And now, the reflection offered by Louise Bunn of the Vancouver Unitarian Earth Spirit Council.
There are many threads in the tapestry that makes up our living tradition. We contain multitudes and have a remarkable depth and diversity of sources that we draw upon to enliven and inform our beliefs and practices. This is both a strength and a call to reflection. Reverend Dr. Stephen Epperson put it well in a sermon from November of 2008, in which he remarked upon a particular strength and challenge for us, and that is the remarkable breadth and diversity of the sources we call upon to authenticate, inform, ground, critique, and enliven our belief and practice, from individual mystical experience, the examples of exemplary prophetic women and men, from the wisdom of the world's religions, to humanist orientation and outlook, to the teaching of earth-centered traditions. These are among the tools that we have as a palette to work with and to think about as Unitarian Universalists. But I'm here today to talk about paganism within a Unitarian context. First of all, what are we talking about when we talk about paganism? What is it? Nowadays, when we use the word pagan, we are usually referring to one of three distinct and distinctly different things. Firstly, there's the classical paganism, usually left uncapitalized, of the ancient world, usually referring to the well-known myths, beliefs, and practices of the great early civilizations of Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome, etc. Secondly, there's the more shamanic religious expressions of indigenous tribal peoples, particularly those of the First Nations peoples. And thirdly, there's modern paganism. It's a relatively new religious movement, now generally recognized as a new religion in its own right, which was established in the early 1950s in Britain by Gerald Gardner and his followers. Wicca was the original pagan denomination, but since then, many distinct categories of modern paganism have been grafted onto the original Gardnerian, pagan rootstock, the most well-known among these being Druidry, Odinism, Dianic witchcraft, and solitary paganism. The origin of modern paganism is an interesting one. Jules Michelet, in his book La Sorcière, written in 1863, wrote that the medieval and early Renaissance witches were indeed pagans, but their religion was a good one that honored women, loved the natural world, and was rooted in the common people, upheld political and religious freedoms against the repressive powers of the medieval church and state. As one would imagine, this view was extremely popular and attractive. Other books came along, such as the anthropology of James George Fraser's book, The Golden Bough, which put forth that the old religions were fertility cults that revolved around the worship and periodic sacrifice of a sacred king. And by the way, Jesus was one of those sacred kings. Robert Graves' The White Goddess, which argued for the worship of a single pan-European meta-goddess under many names across all cultures. Ceremonial magic and Neoplatonic mysticism, matriarchal theory, for example, J.J. Bachhoff and Friedrich Engels, which put forth the theory that in prehistoric societies, women were revered and ran the society. British folklorist Margaret Murray and her books, The Witch Cults of Western Europe and The Horn God of the Witches, which was an elaboration of Michelet's theory and Fraser's work, and the American Charles Leland and his book Aradia, or The Gospel of the Witches. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, a number of people in Britain, having read these books, led by Gerald Gardner and Doreen Valiente and others, used these ideas, as well as other source material, recreated this imagined witch religion and declared it had survived in Britain, in rural Britain. Research and scholarship later quickly proved that very little of this seductive narrative, now known as the myth of Wicca, was true. What is most interesting, however, is how this particular mythos could be so compelling that it not only created the religion of modern paganism, but this religion could seem to have survived, and very handily at that, even after the historical rug had been pulled out from under its feet. In fact, modern paganism and Wicca have thrived. Professor Ronald Hutton, in his book, Triumph of the Moon, offers these suggestions for why. First, modern paganism is feminist. Professor Hutton says, it remains a simple truth that the witch is one of the very few images of independent female power that traditional European culture has bequeathed to the present. European tradition posits that witches and pagans, and indeed the feminine, as natural repositories of magical power with strong associations to the natural world. In Jungian terms, we as a culture have pushed this magical aspect of our psyches aside, and many of us now believe it is high time we, both men and women, reintegrated this shadow material. Second, there is paganism's association with the natural world. What began as a romantic construct of the culture of nature has gone on to grapple with the ecological crisis facing our world. Finally, according to Hutton, paganism's links of the witch to the idea of self-expression. Early modern images of the witch show people in abandoned revelry, marked by images of misrule, disorder, and freedom. People, often both women and men, clearly enjoying themselves enormously. This full-bodied imagery easily turned the witch into a modern icon of liberation in a positive sense. As Professor Hutton puts it, it enabled modern witchcraft to function as a religion which celebrated the joys of living, of sexual union as sacred things in themselves. Margot Adler, a pagan Unitarian and pagan scholar, in her book Drawing Down the Moon, points out that modern paganism is an anti-authoritarian religion that nonetheless retains ritual and ecstatic elements, which in our culture are usually only used by extreme charismatic religions. Paganism is also based on what you do rather than what you believe. It is a religion of orthopraxy rather than orthodoxy, of practice rather than belief. The only necessary belief is that the practice will do you good. Adler also says that while neo-paganism and modern Wicca are very anarchistic religions, it is probably wrong to say that all pagans believe this or that, but there are some basic beliefs that most pagans share. The world is holy, nature is holy, the body is holy, sexuality is holy, the mind is holy, imagination is holy, you are holy. A spiritual path that is not stagnant ultimately leads one to understanding of one's own divine nature. Thou art goddess, thou art God. It is as much within you as it is without. The energy you put into the world comes back. Modern pagans tend to think of the earth as a living organism, a total community of which the plants, animals, and even the soils are a part of the place. Dolores LaChapelle calls this the topocosm. It, the topocosm, is only the actual and living, is not only the actual and present living community, but also a continuous entity of which the present community is but the current manifestation. Both the human and the non-human, the earth, the sky, the animals and the plants, the past and the present, are only a part of this community. Modern paganism sees the world, and indeed the universe, as one holistic system. Modern paganism can be roughly taken as encompassing any earth-honoring or earth-centered nature-based religion. This includes any religious tradition which grows out of a profound sense of the immanence of divinity. Most modern pagans are panentheists, believing that divinity is within everything, and polytheists, invoking many different gods and goddesses. This mix is not as improbable as it may first appear. Most contemporary pagans hold the divine to be indwelling, an effect that's most noticeable in natural or living objects. This is panentheism. However, because the divinity in everything is far too immense for most of us to grasp in a meaningful way, it is necessary to divide it up into different aspects. This is polytheism. Polytheism differentiates between different segments of the universe, with a particular, more or less anthropomorphic divinity being assigned to represent each segment. These divisions can be phenomenal, such as having a divinity of thunder, or one of wind, one of soil, etc. There can also be more abstract divisions, such as having a creator of all things, a goddess of arts and crafts, a god of agriculture, a goddess of smiths. The advantage of polytheism is that it allows for psychological flexibility. James H. Breasted provocatively suggests that monotheism is an imperialism of religion. And Adler similarly proposes that monotheism is a kind of fascism of the mind and spirit. Polytheism allows us access to different parts of ourselves, elemental associations and goddesses and gods that make different parts of the person accessible. It may be helpful to think of these as archetypal constructs. So far as we can tell, this is somewhat different than the ancients' understanding of the gods. Many believed in the gods in literal ways, but more careful thinkers of pagan antiquity also had more abstract notions of the identity of the divine. There are many different branches of modern paganism, with such widely varying traditions and even variations from coven to coven and within covens. This variety and diversity is celebrated. In attending the rituals of different groups, it might seem that they have nothing in common. In fact, they have this in common, that the awesome order and diversity of all things, the incredible diversity and intricacy of life and the universe, whether personified as deity or not, is considered sacred and is the basis of religious thought and feeling. In this, they also affirm the respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. In this formulation, we can see a connection with Unitarian Universalism. So, how did there come to be so many different pagan groups affiliated with UU churches all across North America? And what do these have to offer each other? Both Unitarians and pagans are questioning, lively, and diverse group of women and men who, over time, drew and continue to draw upon a wide range of materials in order to build a religious and ethical community full of life and possibility. We are both communities of seekers. UUs have traditionally been and still are strongly associated with humanism and the use of reason and intellectual rigor in our spiritual lives, and rightly so. We are also enjoined to be open to the direct experience to that transcending mystery and wonder of the transcendentalists. We don't make it easy for ourselves. F. Scott Fitzgerald said that the test of a first-rate intelligence is to the ability to hold two opposed ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. We have given ourselves the task of balancing eros, the ecstatic desire for connection and meaning, with logos, the principle of reason and judgment. This requires much of us. Modern paganism has not always seemed a natural fit for contemporary UU churches. When I first wrote the Paganism 101 curriculum in 1999, Reverend Sidney Morris felt it necessary to warn readers in her foreword under the heading, The Question of Evil, to resist the impulse to project the shadow side of human nature onto other human beings or onto a great cosmological battle for our souls. We can explore the wide range of our humanity and live more fully in moral choice, respecting the depth of our beingness. It is notable that she felt it necessary to address the issue of paganism being conflated with an unspecified evil. But things change. By the time I'd revised and written the second edition in 2008, Reverend Dr. Stephen Epperson wrote in his foreword that he saw paganism and pagans as authentically integrating themselves and pagan practice into the life of congregations and the Unitarian movement, and that they function as a contribution to the health and diversity of our contemporary Unitarian movement. I believe that Unitarianism is a natural home for paganism, due to our history with the Transcendentalists, who bequeathed to us our first source. Many of the Transcendentalists' names will be very familiar to Unitarians. People such as Margaret Fuller, a great women's rights and anti-slavery advocate; Ralph Waldo Emerson, the essayist, philosopher, poet, who was also an anti-slavery advocate; Henry David Thoreau, whose meticulous observations around Walden Pond are used today to track climate change, just to name a few. The Transcendentalists in their day were also critics of their contemporary society for its unthinking conformity, and urged that each person find, in Emerson's words, an original relationship to the universe. For the Transcendentalists, the critical realization was that finding meaning depended on neither orthodox creedalism nor the sensible exercise of virtue, but on one's inner striving towards spiritual communion with the divine spirit. From this wellspring would flow all the rest of their religious philosophy. A core belief of transcendentalism is in the inherent goodness of people and nature. Like the Transcendentalists, pagans also believed that humanity and the natural world have an important relationship with each other, and we can learn from the natural world. We too follow Thoreau's insistent call to wake up, to be aware, to cultivate a way of attending to things in our lives that will allow them and ourselves to be experienced as elements in a meaningful world. But it's not only that. Modern pagans stand alongside Unitarians for many of the same things: sexual equality between genders, good environmental regulation, and against environmental degradations, and for the rights of the individual. Many aspects of this excursive religiosity seem to resonate very strongly with Unitarians. Paganism is a more ecstatic and kinetic version of countercultural spirituality, but I think the tent is big enough. Unitarians and pagans have a lot to offer each other: the marriage of the rational with the intuitive, the sober with the passionate, and of course, the masculine with the feminine in a Jungian sense. Like many modern people, we have an agnostic reflex to the idea that nature acts as a mirror for all humankind, and the universe itself is a symbol revealing the thoughts of the divine and the complex connection between all things. The cosmology of our modern age does not leave much room for this understanding. The experience of wrestling with dispassionate reason and ecstatic communion confirms for me that our imaginative and rational faculties can and should inform one another. These different modes of perception are not a zero-sum game. We do not have to give up our skepticism and rationality in order to commune with the divine, nor do our skeptical and rational selves get to make fun of our imaginal faculties. Doing this sort of work offers one a fuller understanding of our imaginative consciousness and cognitive imagination. Don't expect to escape the discomfort of the explorer. Don't expect to remain unchallenged or unchanged. But don't miss the chance either. Welcome to the journey.
Thank you to Louise for that scholarly and thoughtful presentation. I hope you were all able to hear it. And now a reading by Starhawk. I am the beauty of the green earth and the white moon among the stars and the mysteries of the waters. I call upon my soul to arise and come to me, for I am the soul of nature that gives life to the universe. From me all things proceed, and unto me they must return. Let my worship be in the heart that rejoices, for behold, all acts of love and pleasure are my rituals. Let there be beauty and strength, power and compassion, honor and humility, mirth and reverence within you. And you who seek to know me, know that your seeking and yearning will not avail you unless you know the mystery. For that which you seek, you will find not within yourself. You will never find it. If you find for that which you seek, if you find it not within yourself, you will not find it outside of yourself. For behold, I have been with you from the beginning, and I am that which is attained at the end of desire. The other practice in a pagan circle is at the end of a ceremony to thank the directions and say farewell. This shows respect and it opens the circle. I encourage you to face the directions as they are thanked. Now, Huguette and Laurie will close our sacred time in circle with thank you to the directions and thus open the circle to the mundane world again. Huguette and Laurie.
We have welcomed our loved ones and those who have gone before us, the ancestors whose gifts are with us every day and in every aspect of our lives.
We have made this sanctuary a warm and friendly place, a circle of light and love in the midst of the winds of October. Elemental powers of air, guardians of the East, we thank you for your presence and bid you now hail and farewell.
Elements power of fire, guardians of the South, we thank you for your presence and bid you now hail and farewell.
Elemental powers of water, guardians of the West, we thank you for your presence and bid you now hail and farewell.
Elemental powers of earth, guardians of the North, we thank you for your presence and bid you now hail and farewell.
All of you, East, South, West, North, we are grateful for your circling presence and the memory of our ancestors, beloved children of springtime, summer, autumn, and winter. Hail and farewell.
Sometimes I come on a Sunday feeling burdened by my week and by concerns, but I usually leave Sunday service feeling refreshed, having been renewed by the spirit of love and community that exists here. I leave Sunday service feeling more grounded and whole, and feeling lifted up by the words of righteous challenge. I leave Sunday feeling energized, ready to continue our fight for peace and justice. This haven, this refuge, this place of worship and wonder exists because we make it so with our contributions of the gifts of our time, our skills, our food, our love, our laughter, and yes, our money. Please consider what you might have to give through one of the options offered in the next slides, so that we may continue to have a place that fortifies and challenges us in these trying and troubled times.
At this point, let us join together for our final hymn of the morning, Circle Round for Freedom. The circle is a powerful symbol in pagan tradition. Communities who stand in circles with everyone facing inward participate in an environment where everyone is equal and everyone has equal opportunity to participate. Folks who stand in a circle facing inward can sense in that circle the strength and the care and compassion that lives there. And in that circle, there is also power for positive change in the world. Let's sing together twice this next song, Circle Round for Freedom.
May the sun warm you and mists cool you. May the light glow for you and the darkness cherish you. May you be safe at every step until you return. May you carry this blessing and the light of our chalice in your hearts with love. We now extinguish our chalice.
Before we go to our song benediction, we'd like to issue a warm welcome to each of you to join us for a virtual coffee hour. Now, in order to get to the coffee hour, you're going to have to leave this Zoom meeting. You'll click the red buttons where they exist on your screen. When that screen closes, you'll see a new screen come up in your browser with an invitation to the coffee hour, and it is on that screen and that screen only where you can click on the purple coffee mug or click on the link that's offered there. We hope to see you at coffee hour with us today. Let's sing together, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea.